The Turpins were very good at being able to look like the rest of us. You know, that they did family trips, went to places that are very large, where there isn't any kind of intimate contact, right? Disneyland, Las Vegas are not places where the people around you are paying attention to anyone but themselves, right? And for the rest of the time, they were just locked in the house, right? They didn't belong to a church, to any kind of community group or anything like that. They didn't have any intimate contact or intimate connections with anyone outside of their own cult. It's almost the same way as a prison, right? There's more inmates than there are guards. The same way in here, there are just 2 parents and there's 13 children. There's the use of coercion, psychological coercion, physical coercion that they develop over years. As I'm sure as there were more children, the older children who had already been coerced, manipulated, taught, and abused, passed that, the ethos of the house, of the cult, onto the smaller siblings, right? I mean, that's how usually a large family works. The smaller children are really raised by the older children because there's just too many kids. So the abuse was so prevalent. People should never underestimate the power that parents have over their children when they're small. The scars of abuse last forever, and that's for functioning people. The abuse in this house was to such a great degree that a 29-year-old looked like a teenager. So that is malnutrition and abuse that has gone on for decades. It's like each one teach one, right? They kind of pass it down and they become part of the hierarchy that runs the cult, right? Because in order to gain favor from the parents, right, the leaders of the cult, they have to show that they can also emulate the behavior of the parents, right? They kind of want to become lieutenants, right, in the cult that is the family. The way that these things usually come out, and as we've seen in kind of news stories, you know, throughout our lives, is that someone breaks out, someone runs away, someone finds the courage, the opportunity, and makes that run. You know, when you think about how powerful the physical and psychological abuse and coercion can be, keep in mind that they've had opportunities every time they went to Disneyland or Las Vegas to run away and get help, and they didn't. And that's what real coercion and power is. They're in a hospital, and they're going to be in a hospital for a while. I mean, they are so malnourished that the doctors couldn't just feed them. They have to have a special diet in order to be able to slowly get to a 2,000 calorie daily diet. They will need medical care for the rest of their lives. This type of malnutrition affects not just brain functioning and brain development, so they have, I'm sure, some type of developmental delay, permanent developmental delay, but I'm sure it affects their organs, both their heart, kidneys, and liver. So these are people, children, adults, that have been damaged in a way that's irreversible.
What's going to happen to them?
I'm sure that the children will end up in foster care. The adults, it's more difficult because they are adults, and we really don't have a system other than SSI disability in order to have them to have the funds in order to be taken care of. I mean, they kind of have to be treated in a special way. There is a victim impact fund that the state of California provides for treatment, but it has its limits. I mean, I think this is a great opportunity for the people of Riverside, the county of Riverside, to kind of rally around this family and kind of adopt them as their own. And I know the people of Riverside. I was there 13 years. They're great people. Hopefully somebody will take the lead in taking this family under their wing, but it's a lot. Our system isn't, but hopefully we as people are. We should assume that there are no medical records. We should assume that no doctor has seen these children. Because if you look at them, the marks of malnutrition are pretty evident. And we are at a point in our medical system where records are kept. You know, a doctor, even if you move to a different state or a different city, they will get the medical records from the prior doctor. There is no, I highly doubt that these children have seen any kind of doctor at any time. I mean, this is a pattern of abuse that has been going on for at least 20 years, right? The oldest child is 29. Then there's the fact that they are isolated from the rest of the world, right? He had cut off all contact between the children and his wife with her family. They were not allowed to see them, visit them, talk to them, or anything like that. They were in isolation from the rest of the world. They didn't go to school, they didn't work, they didn't live outside of the house. There was abuse, clear, awful, systematic, long-term abuse of the children, as we have heard in news reports. Even the way they traveled. I mean, they had this large vans with the windows completely tinted out so they couldn't see or interact or talk to the outside world. Controlling how much they ate or didn't eat, that is starvation, has allows the leader to achieve two things. First, they are hungry and they need him for food, and they're used to having that relationship, that kind of psychological coercion, that in order for me not to go hungry, to eat, I have to please the leader, right? And then number two is, if their malnourishment goes to his control and power, and they are, just by the act of malnourishment, weaker and more easy to control. They're more pliable.
How could these two people possibly defend themselves?
She's going to blame him. She's going to blame him that she was coerced and abused by him, and this was all his idea, and that over the last 20, 25 years, she grew used to his abuse, and she is as much as a victim as the children. He has a more difficult or almost impossible defense, which is, I didn't think anything was wrong, there was no abuse, what you saw is not what you saw, and that it's not systematic, it's not as bad as you think, and you're over-exaggerating. I don't think they are as rare as we would hope. I mean, that's a sad truth, is that we have become a very mobile society, and there's a lot of pluses to that, but that makes us all strangers to each other. So we don't know what's going on in our neighbor's house. Doesn't mean we should be nosy, but we do lack kind of the threads that bind us as a community that we used to have. So it allows for something like this to happen, not out in the woods, out in the country where nobody can see you. It happens in basically a suburb. I think what will happen to the parents is that this will eventually go to trial, and that the jury is most likely to convict them. And that means they'll spend the rest of their lives in prison. As to the children, I really don't know. It's really in God's hands, and it's in the community's hands to see what they can do to help these kids.